Just a quick note before I start this video properly. Next week, I'm going to be doing a Q&A, so any questions that you have for me, ask them down in the comments, and next Friday at 9 AM, I will be answering every single one of them. Anyway, good morning. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now, in keeping with my aim to try and give my channel a bit more structure and a bit more routine, I thought I would dedicate one video a month to doing an album review. And I love discovering new music, and I thought one of the really interesting things I could do for this is that if you suggest albums down in the comments section, I can then choose one of them, listen to it for the very first time, and do my review like that. So I'm not just reviewing stuff that I've heard 1,000 times before. I can engage with you on a personal level and discover some new music, which is awesome. And someone suggested to me a few weeks ago that I should review the new Bon Iver album 22 A Million, and that is exactly what I'm going to do today. I've been a big fan of Bon Iver for years now. I've got both of these and this, so I was really looking forward to when this came out. I didn't get a chance to actually listen to this record until after Christmas. Now, the very first time I listened to this album, I put it on my record player, I listened to it from start to finish, and I was kind of like, So I gave myself a whole week of listening to it practically every day, and by the end of that, I was still kind of like, I wasn't totally convinced by it. I'm still not, but I'll talk about exactly why I felt like that. Track 1 is called Over Soon. Do you see what he's done there? He's taken the infinity symbol and replaced the O's in the word soon with that symbol. And soon and infinity, they're very contrasting in their definitions. It's a juxtaposition. Very clever. To be honest, I really like this song. It was the first single he released, and I felt like it was a perfect amalgamation of all of the different styles that he's utilized on previous works, combined with an introduction to the kind of stuff that we're going to find on the new record. It's got his classic Bon Iver vocal layering going on, and some really nice guitar work on there as well. It flowed together really nicely, especially with the sample that he'd put in there as well. My only criticism with that song is that it ends very abruptly. Track number 2 is called Death Breast, and it just has this horrible, awful sounding percussion introduction. Like, I get that it's aiming for a specific mood and atmosphere, but it just kind of sounds gross. The vocal layering that comes in actually adds a really nice contrast to the percussion, and there's some really kind of glitchy production going on. So overall, a couple of nice moments in that song, but I just didn't really like it that much. The production was crap. It just didn't sound very good. Track number 3 is called Hide and Seek. No, it's called Creeks. I actually really like this track. Obviously, it's very inspired by that track by Imogen Heap, but it really works. Justin Vernon is really good and really intuitive when it comes to chord progressions and melodies and stuff. That came across really nicely in that song. My only criticism with it is that it didn't go anywhere. I kind of wish it had been a little bit more structured and perhaps a little bit more climactic, but other than that, I really liked it. Track number 4 is called God. It starts off with this really nice piano and a very nice tone to his vocals. It develops into a bit more of a percussion-led track, which I do really like. I just, once again, find it kind of distracting how messy the percussion sounds. I know it's stylistic, I just personally found it a little bit distracting as far as how all over the place it was in terms of production. But I did enjoy it, and I liked how there was a bit more of a clear structure to the piece. Track number 5 is called Stratford Apartment, and I really love this. Especially when that first line of vocals come in with that really nice, almost country-ish guitar underneath. And then in the next repetition of that vocal melody, when the chord progression develops underneath with the brass coming in, it's just so good. And the vocal layers give a really unique feeling to it. I think it's all Justin Vernon, but it sounds like it could be more than one singer. Just a really nice song, and it's got a bit more structure to it and a bit of development. The only thing that I'm not a fan of in that track is very near the end, there's a solo vocal line that repeats a melody that we'd had earlier, but he's put it through some effect that makes it sound like it's distorting, as if it's been played on tape that's been worn through completely or something like that. And like, yeah, that's cool and everything, but when I first heard it, I was listening to it on my record player, I honestly just thought that I'd been sent a pressing that had been completely f***ed up. I specifically found a version of the song on YouTube to listen to make sure that I hadn't just been sent a dodgy vinyl. Other than that small and frankly insignificant detail, it's one of my favourites on the album. Track number 666 starts with this really cool repeated sequence that then has layers that come in over the top of that, which works really well. It's quite a soft mellow track, and there are these nice woodwind layers that come in throughout, and it develops really nicely later on with the percussion section coming in, and it's nice to be able to say that because I feel like this is the first example of some really nicely produced percussion on this album. It doesn't go quite as far as I would have liked it to go. I kept expecting there to be some sort of climactic ending to it, and it just never happened, but overall I really enjoyed this one. Track number 7 was called Moonwater, and this was in my opinion the most disappointing track on the whole record. It starts off sounding absolutely beautiful. These lush soundscapes and atmospheric pads and soft vocal line that comes in, it's just stunning. I felt like there was some Brian Eno vibes in there, but it goes absolutely nowhere and just sort of descends into this horrible, messy, chaotic, just sonic mush. It loses all form and structure, and especially for like the last 30 seconds, it's just a mess. It's just like someone is just like pressing buttons in the studio and doesn't give a f***. I don't know, maybe that's a bit harsh. I'm sure there's some profound intellectual reason behind that I just don't get. But after the first 30 seconds of that song, I thought it would be like one of my favourites on the whole album. And by the end, I was just like, I've heard enough of this experimental, glitchy stuff to just find it fucking tedious. Feel free to tell me how ignorant I'm being about that song if you feel that that's what I'm doing, and please do enlighten me if there's something that I'm missing. Because listening to it felt like he'd written a minute of a really good song and then had just got bored and been like, nah, f it, I'm just gonna make it a bit weird. In contrast to that, 8 Circle was absolutely beautiful. Arguably my favourite track on the album, it is a classic example of someone taking a commonly used chord progression and just giving it new life. The instrumentation and arrangement is stunning, the lyrics are fantastic, philosophize my figure, like what an amazing line. It's got a little bit of an 80s vibe to it, it kind of harks back to Beth Rest from his self-titled album. The only little criticism I really have for that song is that, again, I feel like it didn't have a big enough climax to it. I was expecting something more to happen than happened. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful song. Track number 9 was called 45. This felt like a little bit of a filler for me. It was really nice hearing just his vocals by themselves, but it felt almost like the first half of it was sort of improvised, with these weird woodwind layers underneath that kind of initially sound fine and then they kind of go a bit crazy. But then the second half of the track, it's like it all suddenly clicks into place and makes perfect sense, and I actually really liked that. The chord progression that comes in just glues everything together really nicely. And finally, track number 10 is called Million. Do you see what he's done there? He's put, as track 10 starts with a 1 and a 0, 5 zeros and then the word million, and if you add a 1 and a 0 onto the front of 5 zeros, then you get the number million, and it's called Million. It's clever, that, isn't it? This was another track that reminded me of Beth Rest. It was a really nice closer. One of the few tracks on the album that I felt had a legitimate song structure. It sounds soft and thoughtful, the melodies, the harmonies, the chord progressions are all absolutely beautiful. And that extra voice that comes in, I think, twice during the song is really nice, and it reminds me of Paul Thomas Saunders' voice. So the final track is definitely one of my favourites. So that's the track by track part. Let's do a quick overview. So this album, 22 Million, I think is really good, but I also think it has been massively overrated by loads of people. Justin Vernon has almost always garnered himself a lot of critical acclaim and a very dedicated group of followers that I would consider myself a part of, but I'm a huge believer in being critical of people, especially those who you have an invested interest in if you really like their music or their artwork or whatever it is that they do. I can't stand that mentality that some people have where just because they like an artist or a collection of work that this artist has done, that they have to like everything else they release and always defend it and be really almost religious about how much they love everything that they do. Some of my favourite artists have released some of my least favourite music, and vice versa. And I think these two albums are absolutely amazing, both for very different reasons. And in all honesty, I don't think that 22 Million is as good as either of them. While there are some fantastic moments on there, overall I feel like it lacks structure, it lacks continuity, and it all feels just a bit disjointed. And look, I get that it's experimental, but I feel like in this day and age, people just use experimental as a synonym for good. That's not how it works. Something could be experimental but also be really shit. Obviously, I'm not saying that I think this album is shit whatsoever. I think overall it is good, but using experimental as an adjective to describe why you like something doesn't always make sense, and it doesn't necessarily validate your opinion. Like, an experiment is something that is conducted to determine an outcome. Something being good or bad is the outcome. They're not the same, and people these days just be like, oh, I really like that album because it's experimental. Like, it's fuck off. And I feel like the experimental aspects of this record actually let it down a bit. And yeah, I know that there will be a whole load of symbolism and intricacies weaved into the music of this record that people like myself and other people may not pick up on right away, but I don't think that a prerequisite to enjoying an album should be a profound understanding of the conceptual and academic interpretations of the music. That being said, the more I listen to it, the more I notice and the more I enjoy it, so it's definitely a grower. Quite frankly, I think anyone that says that this is some amazing masterpiece of an album after just one listen is lying to you and to themselves. In general, I do really like it. It's a nice development on the work that he's done in the past, and I appreciate the things that he's done differently. But the at times bad mixing, incomplete feel to some of the songs, and generally disjointed atmosphere of the whole album do detract from that. Shall I give it a score? Yeah, I'll start giving albums that I review scores, but I won't do it out of 5 or out of 10, and I won't do traditional A, B, B+ rating systems. I'll use the university marking system because I'm at university at the moment, which is out of 100, but you can never really get higher than 80. So this album, 22 Million, I will give 65, which is a middle 2-1. Perfectly respectable score. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any thoughts of your own or comments, or if you want to tell me that I'm an idiot because I didn't understand the album and that's why I'm hating on it, then just let me know down in the comments. That's fine. As I said, Q&A next week, and if you want to give me some album recommendations, let me know down there and I will pick one of them and I will review it next month. And if no one gives me any recommendations, which is quite likely, then I'll just do one of my own albums, so it's fine. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed this. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you all very soon.